I want you all to appreciate this. I had to kick a cat out of a chair for this. Alright. Oh, why do I always do this shit to myself on a Friday night? Alright. The subway platform had only a modest crowd. This wasn't unusual, the peak hours having just passed. A few random folks milled around, waiting for the next train. Some in suits, some in casual outfits, some with faces buried in newspapers, while a far greater number were glued to their phones. Judd, what the fuck was I thinking? Judd had a disdain for them all. It wasn't a fierce emotion. He didn't feel emotions of any kind, really. He felt physical sensations, but no love, no compassion, nor any real anger. He was a pragmatist at heart, he reasoned. Hey, pay attention, that's foreshadowing. That's a literary technique. Pragmatist at heart. Okay. He didn't trouble himself with feelings. He simply calculated the easiest path forward, the thing that would give him the best sensation, and without consideration for these petty others. He was, after all, a pragmatist, though the world would much prefer to call him a sociopath. See, there's foreshadowing, and later on you gotta remember that sentence, because it tells you something about the later guy, you see, because that's foreshadowing. Judd waited for his train with his normal blank, soulless, emotionless stare. He picked the off hours to take the train so he would be less physically repulsed by an overabundance of these sheep we commonly call people. Being around them was a necessary evil he did his best to mitigate. He couldn't experience emotions, as it were, though he was reasonably certain contempt was one that resonated with him. He could understand it on a deep level. For instance, the late 30-something red-headed man standing next to him would certainly inspire such an emotion. Judd stared him down, taking in his features. Everything about this man was just not Judd, and therefore very wrong. From his short red hair to his neatly trimmed mustache, I was picturing like redheaded guy with the total pedo stash too, Mustache and thick frame glasses. Pah, to be nearsighted. This man inspired outright disgust. Judd's stare unwittingly inspired the attention of the man. Upon turning and seeing Judd's stare, his face lit up with the bright glare of the sun. You gotta be from the Great Lakes region to appreciate how much we hate the sun. It's an evil thing that goes away blissfully in October, and you don't have to see it again until, March. We hate the sun. Fuck the sun. We like clouds and overcast and misery. Yeah, fuck you. You all moved to California. Well, enjoy your earthquakes and mudslides and droughts. We have fresh water here. Judd realized he'd made a mistake. Hi, my name's Marty Feldman. How you doing, friend? I'm in the insurance game. Judd could only choke back his bile as the plucky little man began his obnoxious sales pitch.
Friend, I couldn't help but notice you had your eye on this term life insurance policy here. I look at you and I see a man who could definitely...
Judd dearly wanted this man to shut up. If he could, he would have liked to just grab the steel trash can next to the support column and beat this idiot senseless until the talking stopped. However, there were witnesses around. He knew better than to do things in front of witnesses. He fought in front of witnesses growing up. It just led to the involvement of the authorities, which meant at the very least a cessation of things that pleased his physical impulses. What he did to the neighborhood critters, he did those things in private, and it allowed him to keep getting his thrills that way. Totally ripped out of Dahmer. Freely admit, totally ripped the animal cruelty out of Dahmer. I was a kid of the 90s, and Dahmer was the thing of the 90s. If you were a 70s guy, you had... who the hell was 70s? Ted Bundy was 70s. Manson was really 60s. You know, totally like hipster, hippie. John Lennon was in his hippie era. Beach Boys, you know, hippie era. That was Manson. If you were 70s, you had Ted Bundy. 80s, Ramirez, the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. If you were a 90s kid, your serial killer was Dahmer, the guy who ate penises, I think. I don't know. I didn't study the finer details of that. I was a kid. Screw me. Anyway. Alright, I was being stereotypical insurance salesman guy, I think. No, I was back on the critters. Okay, he did those things in private, and it allowed him to keep getting his thrills that way. Oh, okay, insurance.
Now, for the low rate of $65 a month, you can insure yourself for a period expiring...
Thinking about the things he'd done to animals years ago started to awaken an excitement in him. He wondered if perhaps doing something to end this man, this insipid little man, and his pointless little smile, might not give him a rush like he'd never quite felt before. Even the thought was causing his pulse to quicken. Marty continued on.
And I looked at you and thought, oh boy, my buddy here is the sort of man he needs this sort of policy flexibility. Am I right, buddy?
That this insipid thing would pretend to know his mind only firmed Judd's resolve. He had to kill this man. He had only to puzzle out how beating him to death with a trash can, while satisfying, would certainly land him a lengthy prison sentence. While it had its comparative merits versus continuing to listen to Marty, Judd figured the chance to kill again was important enough to make this look like an accident. The distant approach of the train gave him the perfect idea. He could accidentally shove Marty in front of it. He would get the chance to get a last look at the terror in Marty's face, know that he had caused it, and then feign guilt over the matter. After all, who could lock up a distraught man over a clear accident?
Boy, I sure hope we don't get in a train wreck before we sign this policy. Am I right, buddy?
Judd waited, holding his breath and eagerly timing things out. His pulse was racing, and he was getting the rush of his life. This obnoxious red-headed thing would have the incomparable honor of being Judd's first victim. He could see the train pulling into the stop. He made ready. Suddenly, there was an explosion of papers next to him. The damn fool somehow
sent his papers of packet of worthless insurance forms flying. Ah, my forms! Hold on, buddy, let me get these. He might have saved himself the effort for all it was worth. Judd took a step forward towards him as the train drew near. Marty stood up from gathering his forms and whipped around back quickly. Unwittingly, he rammed into Judd, throwing him off balance and straight into the edge of the platform. Judd stood, focused on the oncoming trains. Morty plaintively yelled, "Buddy, oh my God, somebody stop the train!" The train slammed into Judd, killing him in a matter of milliseconds. Fuck. Oh God, damn, it's near 2 a.m. Shit. Alright, let me finish this up. The police questioned everyone extensively. The stories all matched. It was a freak accident. The short little red-headed man inadvertently bumped someone he was selling insurance to. Doubtless, as the poor sap was helping him pick up the papers. Martin Feldman, the unfortunate insurance salesman, seemed so distraught. Oh, Christ. Alright. The police assured him it was just an accident. Witnesses were eventually allowed to leave, and the service resumed at the station. Marty made his way out of the station, his normally bright and beaming face wearing a total look of terror and grief. He exited the station and turned down an alley, out of sight of everyone. The emotion drained from his face and melted away. The sunny little red-headed man now sported a blank, soulless, emotionless stare. He was a pragmatist, you see. Yeah, foreshadowing. See? Foreshadowing. And as a pragmatist, he viewed all walls as breakable, fourth ones included. He deadpanned and stared at you. Hey, pay attention, he's looking at you. To fool those sheep down below, or you for that matter, is an effortless task. An amateur like him, it's a little trickier. But you saw how easy I did it. Now imagine how you would fare against a seasoned pro like me. He turned away back to the street. The world's full of people held in disdain, and he was master of them all. Alright. Yeah, that's enough of that.